everyone. Great to be here this morning with Josh Reeves, CEO of Gusto, and a very busy man. There's this elusive term in Silicon Valley of culture fit. And as I understand it, what it essentially means is people you want to drink with. Josh has a startup, and he decided, not from day one, but 4 years into building it, that redefining hiring priorities to solve for the problem of culture fit was a priority. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, deeply honored to be here, and I actually don't drink, so it would have been even harder to have that criteria. But no, I do think there's that issue with culture fit, and at Gusto we think about it as values and motivations. But we started the company 5 years ago, and definitely up here and excited to share, I would say, some advice, learnings, but by far we have a lot more to do on this topic. And about a year and a half ago, we realized if we looked at our numbers, data is really valuable. We weren't really happy and proud with where we were at in terms of representation from different populations.
Were you ashamed?
I would say energized, motivated. I think the story of entrepreneurship is you see a problem and you want to fix it.
Okay.
And so it's never done. It's always an opportunity to improve. We're action-centric people, so we said, how can we go take some actions, which we're not done with today, to go make a difference? So we set goals for the year. We have 3 specific goals we're working towards. We've made some progress, and we have more to do.
And we're going to get to the goals in a moment and have them on screen as well. But just tell me a little bit, what is the picture you saw that you felt needed to be fixed?
Well, specifically on engineering, we had basically been hiring, and we have a pretty specific process on how we hire, which we can save for a separate discussion, but very focused on the values motivations side. But we just realized that we hadn't reached a target number. If you look at one metric, you can look at college graduation rates, which today I think are about 18% when it comes to female engineering graduates, and we were below that. And that to me felt like even a bare minimum. I think we're probably closer to, I want to say above 10%. I don't know the exact number at that point.
Okay.
Today we're at 16, 17%, so we're getting closer.
I see.
But we have a lot more to do.
So then, I mean, you would actually say that your startup is an example of pretty standard then, Silicon Valley, is that right? Or?
I would say well, I definitely think there's a lot of Silicon Valley companies that have similar numbers, and I would say we're equally excited to make a difference around it, but mostly eager to dive into the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then do we have the goals that you'd set?
Yeah.
Yeah. So explain a little bit. You know, what strikes me so much sometimes about data-driven companies is so many don't want to set measurable goals around their diversity. It's sort of the rigor of metrics just doesn't apply in this area.
Which is ironic, right?
Yeah.
Companies in tech are especially data-driven. No, these are some of the goals we set. I mean, we set 3 different goals. One was around leadership. Specifically, we realized we didn't have very many female leaders in Gusto, and today we're now at about 34%, which is progress, but still a long way to go. From a D&I standpoint, from a Black and Hispanic standpoint, 10% in Gusto. Today we're at 8%, so we still have more to do. And then from engineering specific, like I said, we're at 17% on engineering, about 34%, 35% on product management. So we have the ability to check in on those. But again, the more interesting thing is the actions you take, because data is there to inform. Then what you do about it is actually the way that we either make an impact. So how we spend our time is probably the thing that is
so
most.
So what changed about how you spent your time?
Well, we think about it first as, again, like a problem. Where does it start? And what can we act upon in the near term, medium term, long term? So we have kind of different things we're doing in each of those areas. From a funnel standpoint, it's going to the specific places and also investing the time and energy into getting candidates that we do not get today. So that can tie to conferences, it can tie to schools that we go to. We have recruiters at Gusto where we specifically say your job is to go get and source folks from these underrepresented areas because we already have plenty of candidates in the other sections. Then it comes back to the interview process. Is there anything blocking or changing the way that we interview? And we didn't have to make any changes there, but we also realized there was some opportunity on the benefit side. So specifically around fertility benefits, a lot of benefits in the US actually have unintentional basically discrimination inside of them. the one that we specifically got really excited to change and hope more companies can change is fertility benefits if you're a lesbian couple and you don't have a diagnosis of infertility. It actually was really hard to get IVF. So we worked with an insurance carrier to change that, hopefully set an example to others. But then once you're in a company, I think that's probably where there's the most opportunity, because your team is also going to be a huge source of referrals and driving new candidates in the pipeline. And so that's where we spent the most time on building out mentorship programs. And there's a lot of organizations you can work with.
Mentorship programs?
Yeah, mentorship programs. So we have 3 different programs today. One is more purely internal. So if you're interested in product management, my colleague Hila can serve as a mentor, help inspire folks, but also be a sounding board if folks want to get into product management, which is an area that, again, is fairly underrepresented. You can work with her, talk to her. She sets aside time to help folks. We work with an organization called West, where 100% of female engineers at Gusto now have a mentor at another company, and we have 2 mentors at Gusto.
Right.
And then there's Hackbright Academy, which is another organization we work with.
And I'm sorry, so the mentorship, does it do something for recruitment or retention? I'm not exactly sure how it fits into then the overall strategy of changing what your numbers look like.
Well, I think there's ultimately, again, short-term, long-term, medium-term, there's getting more folks into the field. Mentorship is amazing. Hackbright, these are women that are trying to explore engineering for the first time, having a role model they can talk to, work with. Whether they join Gusto or not, that's a more Gusto-specific topic, but the fact that more females are going into engineering because they have role models they can look up to massively helps with top of funnel on the industry at large. Mentorship inside Gusto is about getting folks who might be interested in a career path, giving them a chance to take that dive and see if it's right for them.
Do you feel like you've been able to tap into mentorship programs or new networks for Black and Latino employees as well? Or is it because I think that the picture for women and white women versus other underrepresented minorities is different.
Yeah. Well, I think, and again, that's why calling it D&I is almost like in our industry, we say small business. There's thousands of industries, thousands of sectors. It's many different sub-problems. So I think you just have to be specific. Like one thing we're going to be doing more in the coming year for diversity hiring in particular is the universities we go to. So excited to be spending more time, not at Stanford or Berkeley or universities everyone goes and recruits from. Yeah, go to Atlanta, go to Texas, go to Virginia Tech, different places where we can have better exposure to these candidates.
And that's something you've started to do or will start to do?
We'll start to do.
Okay.
So excited to do that.
And I'm curious, so when you decide as the CEO of a company, we're going to make this thing a priority, enough of a priority that we're setting numbers around it, and maybe they'll become even more ambitious over time.
Yeah.
Do you belong to a community of other CEOs where you can just really talk shop about it and really get rigorous, or is it kind of like crickets?
Well, I'll first give credit to my co-founder, Eddie. We've been very public blogging about this too. He leads our engineering team and has been a partner in kind of really driving a lot of the focus on the engineering team around D&I. But in terms of the conversation, I find almost 2 things happen. One, to be opposed to this topic, you'd almost have to be like a bad person. So everyone is obviously
or you could say a practical I hear what you're saying, but people rationalize.
Yeah, but the first order response is, yes, important, exciting, but then there's this immediate after effect of discomfort, which is are we talking numbers, quotas, are we talking ratios, and all of a sudden these are people, and then how do I apply that, and I'm going to go back to product development or engineering work. And so when I talk to our investors, we have 75 CEOs as angel investors in the company, running various companies, some of which I think are really good at this topic, some of which could improve. And that's what I try to have more discussion around. But there is no silver bullet. No one's waiting or hoping for kind of a simple, straightforward answer. Much like building a company where you want to change something, in our case, it'll take decades for us to fix the problem we're tackling as a company, which is helping all these small businesses around the world. I think this is just a long-term problem. So you have to just make progress and celebrate progress, celebrate incremental progress.
And do you feel like there's mentorship for you when you think about solving this problem?
We definitely have, our board is a great sounding board. We have Layla Sturdy from Google Capital, Hemant Taneja from General Catalyst as my 2 biggest sounding boards. They care deeply about this topic, both for personal, family, and professional reasons. It's just very authentic to them from a value standpoint. But I think probably the biggest area where there's an opportunity, so we have 40,000 customers using Gusto today. And we did the numbers looking at D&I on our customers. about 34% of small business owners using Gusto are female, but 18% of tech founders, i.e. the industry we're in, are female. So if you look at tech is a fast-growing industry. These companies get much bigger when you're a 5 or 10 or 20-person company. We were in Y Combinator. We did demo day here, literally. This is where YC takes place. I think that's where there's actually the most opportunity, is bringing it into organizations earlier on so it becomes a part of their DNA. Otherwise, frankly, using us as a good reference point, it was late, and I'm not proud of that. Year 3, 4 in, realizing that we weren't happy with numbers, being more public, would hope that others learn from that and do it earlier.
I want to take a question or two from the audience in a moment, but just one more thing I'm wondering about. When I've reported on efforts by companies to do more diverse hiring, so for example, with Intel, I recall speaking to employees at the company or reading message boards that I was not supposed to have access to, but I got access to, and seeing a lot of complaints and concerns of, okay, now the most qualified person isn't going to get the job. Have you had to deal with those conversations in-house?
And I think that's so wonderful to hear. So I would say, have I dealt with it? I have not dealt with it, but I would not be opposed if it has come up in the company, because that's what it means to dive into a complicated topic. I mean, I have a personal anecdote. We mentioned earlier, but my mother's from Bolivia. She came to the US when she was 18. Didn't speak any English, put herself through college, got a scholarship. Is a huge inspiration to me. My dad's from a small steel town outside of Pittsburgh, and they're both teachers. But my dad taught in San Francisco Unified for 25 years at a time when affirmative action was a very robust program. And we would have conversations regularly about how does this program impact the tapestry of a school system. And we netted out at believing very strongly that it was important to have that program be in place, personal opinion, to basically change egregious numbers where, as a student, if you don't have a role model you can look up to, that really sets you back even earlier in life. But my dad's a Caucasian male, my mother's a Latina female, so it actually disadvantaged him in some ways, but we actually saw it as important. So that's an example of, again, even that is quasi-uncomfortable or complicated, but that's how complicated problems are fixed, is you dive into it, you don't shy away from it.
Is there a question or two from the audience? I have the light glaring at me, so I can't.
My name's Charlie Eaton, and I'm with the Human Capital Lab at Stanford.
Yeah.
And I really liked both what you said and folks on the previous panel said about expanding your recruitment to colleges other than less diverse institutions like my own. But if we're recruiting more broadly from outside of the state from more diverse colleges, it doesn't necessarily get at how do we create more pathways from the diverse communities in the Bay Area. And also, if we're focusing on colleges, it leaves out all those folks who have already graduated from college and might want to make a career transition to tech. And so I wondered if you have thoughts about what Stanford can do as an educational institution about those problems and how we might work better with companies like yours.
Yeah, so again, this is something where I have other companies as reference points and excited to do more at Gusto in this vein. But the ability to go mentor either at middle school, high school, very formative stages. I mean, I remember back to being in public school where you were made fun of if you were smart, you were made fun of if you were technical or liked math or science, heaven forbid, you like numbers. And I think ways to change that, again, are super grassroots, super bottoms up. But specifically, I think Facebook's done a good job in Menlo Park, EPA, having some friends participate in those programs, go out and work in the local community where there are a lot of problems as well. And I think that's always an opportunity for universities to do as well. It's so close by.
I'll ask this question then in wrapping up. It touches on this issue of what's cool and what's not and where the culture gets set broadly. We have a new incoming administration.
Yes.
And a president-elect who who projects quite different values from President Obama when it comes to diversity. How do you think that affects Silicon Valley and this goal that you hold dear?
Yeah, I think so. Really quick anecdote, but I was in DC on election night, and I was right outside the White House fence from 7 p.m. to midnight on election night. So you can come afterwards, and I can share some stories with you guys. But I think the role of Silicon Valley, and this is a discussion we do have a lot in the company, tech has a huge role in the world today, right? Some of the biggest companies in the world are in tech. We are fairly siloed geographically, which is actually not a good thing because it becomes easy to feel like we're in a bubble. I grew up here. I've been here my whole life. I was born in San Francisco. This area is an echo chamber. So traveling and getting out of this area is incredibly important. It's part of why we opened an office in Denver. It's why we give every one of the Gusto employees on our team a free plane ticket anywhere in the world on their 1-year anniversary to get them to leave, explore, and travel somewhere. And so I don't know if everyone can do that, but that's one thing we do. I think in the next 10 years, there's a path for tech to become the enemy in the country if it doesn't take on the responsibility of not just optimizing user flows and product workflow, driving engagement, driving ad monetization, and embraces the fact that we have a profound impact on people's lives around the world.
Thank you very much, Josh.
Thank you.
Yes.